sales better than anticipated, margins beating targets, and we see strong demand from your consumer base right now. I wonder if, and yet you stick to your guidance essentially this morning. I wonder what message you're trying to communicate about how upbeat you are.
Well, I think we are pretty upbeat. I mean, we're looking at another year, 2021, another year of double-digit growth. I think basically the industry is firing on all cylinders. The logic compute market, which was already very strong in 2020, grows another 10% at least this year. Memory, which is basically how you store data, recovered in 2020, will grow 20% this year. And our installed base business, or for servicing our tools, will also grow 10%. So all in all, I mean, it's a double-digit growth for the company this year.
Definitely firing on all cylinders in terms of automotive chips, at least not making, you can't make enough, right? Or the chip makers can't make enough, those to whom you supply the equipment. Do you see that bottleneck being opened? Do you see that problem being solved anytime soon? What's your outlook on the auto chip situation?
Yeah, I think what we are seeing is the effect of some of the capacity reductions that customers of our customers started to implement during the COVID crisis of last year, especially Q2 and Q3 of last year looked pretty bleak. And of course, you can then see that there are reactions in terms of capacity expansion. If then in the end it turns out to be relatively okay, but those capacity expansions didn't come through, you get shortages, and that's what's actually happening. So I think this whole industry now, this engine needs to start running again. But we actually start from, you could say, an undercapacity point of view today. So we'll just have to step up, and we'll need to ship more tools and more machines to get more semiconductor capacity out there.
Yes, and if you need to step up, Peter, how much capacity, how much opportunity do you have at ASML to be part of that, to do that, and trying to assess how much upside risk there might be to your estimates at this point?
Well, I think there is upside, but that really depends on the ability of the supply chain to really step up a gear again, and that will take a bit of time. So I think it's my personal view. This will extend into 2022 even, but I think there's upside, especially in the logic market. We do expect upside in China. Now, of course, that is also governed by some pretty strict export control rules. But, if the export control rules stays the way they are, as they are today, then I see further upside, especially in the logic market for our customers in Asia.
Peter, at the beginning of last year, as China was taking measures the rest of the world considered draconian, there was so much talk of shifting the supply chain. Now it looks like you'd rather have production. Well, production is more likely to actually happen in China than it is here in Europe as we take those same draconian measures. How has the supply chain shifted over the last 12 months?
Actually, it has not, and it would be a bit too optimistic to think that supply chain of a very well integrated ecosystem making very complex products called semiconductors, that you can change that on the short term. I mean, this ecosystem, which is pretty seamless, and actually helps all of us because it drives the cost of semiconductors down and drives the cost of smartphones down, and and it drives the cost of the electronics down. That has been created over the last 30 years. Now, you cannot just from one month to the other change that. I mean, if you want to reallocate semiconductor build capacity, manufacturing capacity, you have to think in years. And so there's no real impact.
And let me ask you about something else to do with China and your ability to do business with China, Peter. Do you expect any change in your freedom to transact with Chinese customers based on a handover from President Trump to President Biden?
Well, there's also a lot of hope, but I think my personal, hope doesn't really matter. But what I think is important is that we need to realize that the United States and China are in a very heavy competitive situation vis-a-vis technology. And that will not go away. I think the view in the United States that China is their big competitor, economic and technological competitor, I think is pretty widespread. It's pretty partisan. What I would expect is that the way that we are going to address some of the key issues that we have with China, which I think also includes Europe. There's a few issues which I think has to do with level playing field. The ability of non-Chinese customers to do business in China and Chinese companies doing business in the rest of the world. I mean, that is an issue. I also think the enforcement of intellectual property, of intellectual property laws in China, that needs to step up. So I think there are some common themes that the non-Chinese countries will have with China, which I think Biden will probably seek much more allied view as opposed to the Trump administration that really was one directional and didn't go into a lot of negotiation with their partners or with their potential allies.